this is gonna suck. So what is the Whole30 diet exactly? This is an elimination diet that emphasizes eating whole foods. The claim is that by following this diet for 30 days, you'll see improvements in energy, focus, digestion, performance, and you'll likely even lose some weight along the way. What's not to love, right? Well, like most good things in life, this does come with a sacrifice. You'll likely have to give up all of your favorite foods because on the Whole30 diet, there is no added sugar, no artificial sweeteners, no alcohol, no grains, no dairy, essentially no fun.
Zero fun, sir.
All right. So I'm just gonna cut straight to the chase here and tell you all that we failed, or I guess we quit the Whole30 diet just at around the 14-day mark. And we'll explain why throughout this video, but in short for us, the trade-off, it just wasn't worth it. But I did want to share my experience, go over how the Whole30 diet was for us, go over the results that we saw, the pros, the cons, and the takeaways from this diet because, you know, it wasn't all bad. So by the end of this video, you will be able to decide if the Whole30 diet is right for you. If you happen to be new here, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to drop this video a like if you end up enjoying it. But let's just start out with the kinds of foods that we were eating throughout this time. They should rename this diet Whole Paycheck. So one of the most expensive grocery hauls we've ever had. As you can see, we've got a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. You are allowed sweet potatoes. Thankfully, we can never give up our Vital Farms eggs, regular potatoes as well. Apparently bacon is allowed. It even has Whole30, so they can charge you an extra $4 for it. Vegetables, RX bars apparently are Whole30 approved. And as you can tell, we've got a lot of different protein sources with some Whole30 approved barbecue sauce. Let's go. Throughout this Whole30 journey, Megan, my wife, if you guys are new here, had to spoil me even more than she normally does. So because I couldn't eat my protein bar for breakfast like I do every single day, she would make me a veggie omelet any morning that I wanted it. And I might even be on a conference call or something, and she would just walk into my office and lay the omelet down. I mean, it really doesn't get much better. So if you don't like to cook or you don't have someone to cook for you, this is gonna be a very challenging protocol to follow. And if I was here to fend for myself, I wouldn't have made it out of the first day. I probably never would have even started this thing to begin with. But if you do get to spend a lot of time at home, or if you work from home, then I think that this meal plan is gonna be a lot easier for you. So the days that I got to spend at home were pretty easy because we already stick to a lot of these whole natural foods, and we were already following a lot of these guidelines. So lunch is actually going to be the exact same thing I have every day when I'm eating at home. We've got our ground beef, we've got mixed vegetables on a bed of kale salad. So really, I've been doing this Whole30 thing for a long time. The only difference is I can't use regular barbecue sauce, so I have to use this Primal Kitchen, which honestly, I don't think tastes that great. I mean, it is delicious, hence why I eat this lunch every single day. Definitely makes you feel good. However, like a lot of you guys, I do not have the luxury of being home all day, every day, with easy access to the kitchen. If you guys don't know, I am an outside sales rep, which means I spend a lot of time on the road, working a lot of long hours, and it can be pretty strenuous, and you don't always have the best access to good food choices. So on the days I knew I was gonna be out in the field for an extended period of time, I really had to plan ahead, and I had to get a little bit more creative. So I know on YouTube, a lot of times you're used to people living in the fitness bubble where they can hang out at home, make all their meals fresh. Well, not really the same case for me. So I've got a 2.5 hour commute to my territory today. So I gotta be a little bit more prepared. And this thermos is actually going to be coffee creamer because there's nothing at Starbucks that is Whole30 approved. And we have been loving this right here. These nut pods, insanely good. Pretty surprised. So I'm gonna bring this with me, bring some apples, and then for breakfast, I'm just gonna bring some hard-boiled eggs. Easy source of protein and fats, healthy for you. Not the best tasting thing in the world, but at least, you know, they're Vital Farms, so you know it's high quality. Now, I was able to find a few restaurants like Chipotle and Clean Eats and a few other local places that I could eat at, but because this diet is so restrictive, it was definitely a challenge. So there were days where you kind of just had to suck it up, pack something in a cooler and eat it, even if it didn't taste the best. So you know, it might not always be glamorous, but we will make it work. I've got my sweet potatoes and my pork left over from a few nights ago. I'm gonna eat it cold here in my car, just kept it in a cooler. And that is gonna be lunch as I sit here in the Starbucks parking lot. And you know what, if no one told you today, you look phenomenal. But I think it's safe to say that most of us are at least able to eat dinner at home where you do have access to all of your foods in the kitchen. So in those instances, it wasn't too bad. And honestly, because Megan makes delicious foods every night of the week, it really wasn't much of a sacrifice at all. So tonight's dinner is made up of pulled pork, which is just a piece of pork put in the crock pot with Primal, what is it? Primal Farms? Primal Kitchen barbecue sauce with vegetables, and then oven roasted potatoes. Honestly, this isn't much different than what we would eat on a normal night, and it is 9.647 out of 10. Tonight's Whole30 meal idea, we have chicken tenders with roasted zucchini, peppers, and onions. Of course, I made all of this myself, and it is very delicious. So I found the meals to be very manageable, but the snacking is really the most challenging part, and I would imagine that most people feel the same way. So you have to be really conscious of the decisions you're making if you do need something in between meals, because you really can't just grab something that's quick and convenient that you're probably used to eating. So I opted for a lot of fruits. I mean, I was probably eating a pound of fruit per day. Strawberries, blueberries, bananas, apples, you name it. If there was a fruit at the store, I was buying it and I was eating it, but it was really challenging for me because I couldn't really find that level of satiation that I was looking for, because what I desired was something more like this, like a Built Bar protein bar, which I have at least 1 or 2 per day, but we'll talk about this in a minute. On the Whole30 diet, you not only have to cut out added sugars, but you also have to cut out artificial sweeteners, which I don't agree with because I don't think they're of any harm to you as long as you're being reasonable with it, but I was abiding by the rules, and this was the hardest part for me because all of the supplements that I take have artificial sweeteners in them, so I couldn't have my branched chain amino acids, my pump product, my pre-workout. I was documenting all of this on my Instagram. If you guys aren't already following me, you definitely should for real-time updates, but a lot of people thought that I couldn't have caffeine, which isn't true. I just couldn't have pre-workout, energy drinks, anything with artificial sweeteners in them, so my workouts absolutely sucked. After the 2-week mark, I decided that this diet was not for me, and that is when I decided to stop. It wasn't like some big craving that I just cracked. There wasn't really one triggering moment. It was just something that I didn't feel was right for me. It was limiting the kind of content I could create on YouTube. I wasn't seeing any real benefit to my energy level or any real benefits at all. It just felt super restrictive for no apparent reason. And to be fair, maybe if I gave it the full 30 days, I would have started to see more and more positive benefits. I don't think it's a terrible diet by any means, but for me, you know, it just wasn't right, and that's okay. Throughout this process, you are not supposed to count your calories or weigh yourself at all. I did weigh myself in the beginning and after day 14. I lost about 3 pounds. Megan lost anywhere from like 3 to 5 pounds, so I do think it can be used as a weight loss tool, although I do not think that is the prime objective of the Whole30 diet. But by default, when you restrict a lot of different foods, you're going to eat less calories, thus losing a little bit of weight. Other than that, I pretty much felt the same, had a few cravings, of course. There were certain foods that were really hard to give up, but I'm gonna get to that in the cons. But before we get into all of the cons, let's talk about a few of the pros, right? Because as I mentioned, it wasn't all bad. The number one thing I like about the Whole30 diet is that it forces you to make better food choices. You are eating whole, natural, quote unquote healthy foods, a lot of foods that I think most of us should be sticking to the majority of the time. So it really drives that point home and really makes sure that you're putting the right things into your body. It also helps you build better eating habits. A lot of times you're eating because you're bored or something just sounds good. So it really makes you be honest with yourself, because let's be frank, I mean, a lot of times fruit is not what we're craving, except for me and strawberries. You know, I've got a thing with strawberries. So instead of just going to the fridge and grabbing out something that's prepackaged and sugary just because a nice insulin spike sounds good, it really makes you think like, do I actually want this? Am I actually hungry? And I think that's a really good conversation that everyone needs to have with themselves. The last pro I'm going to talk about is you will focus much more on the quality of your foods and not on the amount of calories that are in them. And that is very freeing, especially for those who have spent a lot of time counting their calories, counting their macronutrients, or just looking at food in terms of numbers. This says, hey, doesn't matter, don't count your calories at all, just eat these specific foods. And I think that that has both good and bad things about it. But for this experiment, I thought it was a really good thing to just eat until you were full. Like I said, a lot of these foods weren't super delicious. It wasn't like you're getting some big sugar rush where you're just eating and eating. So it really made you be honest with yourself. And it really kind of gave you that peace of mind that you were eating just until you were full. But for us, there were just too many cons to continue this for the full 30 days. The number one con was that it was just too restrictive. There were a lot of good foods out there that I felt should have a place in your diet, like beans, like rice, like certain grains, oatmeal, for example. A lot of these things that you couldn't have, and I found it to kind of intrude on my life more than I would like it to, especially for foods that I really enjoy and I don't see anything wrong with them, such as protein bars. I require protein supplements to meet my protein intake. And without them, you know, I just can't get there. I don't want to eat that much meat. Not to mention things like the Built bars taste delicious. Only 150 calories, almost 20 grams of protein. It's something that I look forward to every single day. And this is the Rocky Road flavor. It is so good and it allows me to get in sufficient protein. It's something that I look forward to every single day. So to just arbitrarily remove that from my diet for no reason, there's nothing wrong with this. It's awesome. Everyone loves these things, and you can use Travis to save 15% on Built bars. I'm gonna actually leave that link down below so y'all can check it out. They've been nice enough to sponsor today's video. I just wasn't willing to give them up for even one day longer, especially for someone like myself with a busy schedule. It's very practical to grab and go. They're just awesome. So definitely check out Built bars. But that was one of the huge reasons I decided to just call it quits. And maybe even more than limiting certain foods, it limited life experiences. Megan and I like to go on a date night at least once a week. But it really became a challenge because we couldn't go to nearly any restaurant that we wanted to go to. We're not big drinkers, but you know, we like a cocktail every weekend. So that was one thing, but also like, where are you gonna go where you can't have any grains? I guess you could go to like a steakhouse and get a steak and potato, but other than that, we couldn't really think of anything. And after the second weekend, we're just kind of looking at each other like, is it really worth it? Not to mention the cost associated with this diet. We were spending upwards of $400 per week on groceries. That's for 2 people. Compare that to about $200 to $230 per week during our normal days or weeks of eating. And a lot of that was because of me. I was eating a whole lot of fruit. And there was just like a lot of these things that you wanted to eat that you couldn't. So you had to get a little bit creative, and these substitutes that are quote unquote healthier, or anything that says Whole30 approved, is gonna be a lot of money. A small pack of bacon, I think has like 8 pieces of bacon, because it was Whole30 approved, was like 10 bucks. So those types of things add up very quickly. So very costly and very time intensive. As I mentioned, Megan was cooking a lot. And to be clear, she kind of just got sick of it.
So, honey, I don't like being on camera.
I'm looking at Megan's note here. She wanted to mention that it was too meat heavy, which also meant more sodium, more than she would like. For me, that wasn't as big of a concern. Like I said, I was already having enough issues getting in protein, but for her, it was a big change. Now, if you're at this point in the video, I hope you have not made the conclusion that this was a complete waste, that there was no good that came out of it, because there definitely was. And actually, even today for lunch, I could have had a sandwich, but instead I opted for a Whole30 lunch, just because I did see some benefit from limiting a lot of breads and a lot of grains, although I didn't feel the need to eliminate it completely. So I do think that it will teach you some self-control. I also think that it will help prevent mindless snacking. I think that's probably the number one thing that most of us are guilty of. And this has kind of taught me that, hey, if you're really that hungry, then have a piece of fruit. It will be refreshing, it will fill you up. If that's not what you want, then maybe you aren't hungry at all, and maybe you just wanted a sugary snack because it sounds good. For me, I like a challenge, so I liked the mental challenge of it all. I didn't think that it was one of those things that was so challenging, like giving up caffeine, something I couldn't have done even if I wanted to. This was just nice to prove to myself that, you know, I am not reliant on any of these foods. The other thing I should mention is that I think that we will start to eat in like a Whole30-esque way throughout the week unless we want something. So I think that this is like a good guideline, but if we want rice with our dinner, or if we go out to Mexican, we're gonna eat tortilla chips and drink margaritas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that it really kind of pushes you in the right direction, 80% of the time, to eat whole natural foods. And you know, that's really our review on Whole30. So if you've ever tried Whole30, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Or if you're considering it, let me know if you learned anything from this. Did I get anything wrong? Did I mess up? Should I have just gone all 30 days so I could made, I guess a better review? You all let me know. But for me, it was the right decision. We definitely enjoyed our date night last night, and I think for us, it just didn't really make sense at this stage in our lives. But I really do appreciate everyone leaving their thoughts and their comments down below. And thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to watch. I mean, you could have been doing anything in the entire world, and you chose to spend a few minutes with me. That is pretty awesome. Please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I look forward to talking to y'all next time.